What's good out there, Liquid Trucking, and welcome into the Liquid Trucking Podcast, episode 69 of our little show here. Can you believe that? 69 episodes already? Nice. We're doing a great job. You guys are contributing huge. Make the job super easy. Here's to 69 more. We're not doing a big celebration or anything like that. I think probably for our 100th episode, we're going to really blow it out and do something really cool. I haven't figured out what that is yet, and I've still got 30 weeks to plan it. So look forward to something back half of the year. I don't even know when 100's going to come around. It might be sort of like a Christmas time or something like that at this point. Maybe not quite that far. Probably like Halloween-ish, maybe football season. That would be really cool. Maybe we can figure out something to do around football season. I know we got a lot of football fans. Maybe it's going to be hunting season. I don't know. But we're creeping in on 100, and it feels pretty good, to be honest with you. We've talked about so much, and for those of you that are tuning into this, and maybe you've only listened for 5 or 10 episodes, every single episode that we've done is available to you at liquidtrucking.com. Just click the banner at the top of the page. You see my picture, and it says, check out our podcast. That will take you to the landing page. We talk about this all the time. Every single episode is available there with info on the episode, who is in the episode as far as guests are concerned, and what we're talking about. So if you're new to the podcast, first off, welcome. Thank you. We appreciate every click that we get here on the Liquid Trucking Podcast. But if you haven't felt out the library yet, you haven't really gotten comfortable in these digs, get on over to the website, man. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. We have a very unique situation here. Jason over at the Plattsmouth Terminal, he really lets me get away with almost anything I want to, and it's a very collaborative effort too. Without those guys helping come up with topics, trust me, it would be a little bit drier because I'll be honest with you, sometimes the coffers run dry in my head, and Jason, Nick Meyer, Bo Hankey, Cole Brown, and even all the way up to Josh Schmidt. These guys have helped me out immensely here with this podcast. So we're doing it for you drivers. We also love to hear any suggestions that you have. You can always email me, podcast@liquidtrucking.com, or send me a text message if you've got my phone number. It's been really cool. Like 3 weeks ago, I sent you guys a text message, and actually by the time you'll hear this, it's probably going to be more on the order of like 5 weeks ago. I sent out a text message and just said, hey, we love your suggestions. Keep them coming. And I got a bunch of suggestions in a direct reply right after I sent that. And then for the last 3 weeks, they've just been trickling in via text message and email. And that's really cool because we want to make episodes about what you guys want to hear about. So we're always taking suggestions. Fling them my way. Pepper me with them like buckshot. I really enjoy it. Taking a suggestion and turning it into an episode for me is one of the most fulfilling things I get to do because that was one of the listeners of the podcast, looks forward to it every week, that reached out to me and said, hey, I'd really like to hear about this. And I know that maybe that's just one person that wants to hear about it, but probably not. There's probably a lot of people thinking, hey, that would be a cool episode. So always keep those suggestions rolling in. In terms of where we are at in our March Madness Bracket Challenge, as you guys know, we record these episodes a couple weeks in advance so that they can go through review. We can make sure and polish them up, make them look and sound really good for you. I'm not going to be able to give you an update because, obviously, I'm recording this before March Madness has even actually officially kicked off. What I can tell you in terms of the schedule, though, is that we are creeping on the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. So you are listening to this podcast on the 26th of March. That's when it launched. And the Sweet 16 will be March 27th and 28th, so tomorrow and Friday. And the Elite 8 will take place Saturday and Sunday. We got another 4 days of March Madness looking us right in the face right now. I love this time of year. Listen, one of the cool parts about recording episodes, a couple weeks ahead of time is that I get to kind of imagine how I am in the future. I get to play time travel in my brain a little bit. And right now, I'm betting. In fact, I think smart money would be on this. Right now, in 2 weeks' time, I'm either really happy or incredibly pissed off, because there is no in between for me with the bracket challenge. I either do great or my champion loses out in like the first 2 rounds and I've got no hope. So, it's kind of a fun thought exercise to think about it. How are you going to feel, Marcus, when the actual date rolls around and you're staring the Sweet 16 in the face? I don't know. I haven't watched a lot of college basketball this season, so I'm not feeling very good about it right now. But there is cash on the line, and for those of you playing, make sure to head over to liquidtrucking.com and get to the podcast landing page by clicking the banner at the top of the page. Go check out the group, see how your bracket's doing. Obviously, we've got those Amazon gift cards for you guys to compete for. So, unfortunately, the deadline has passed for entry, but we were very, very loud about when you guys need to get your brackets turned in. So, for those of you that are in and playing, the money's on the line, and good luck to you. I hope you enjoy watching the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 over the weekend. Okay. Time for us to get into what this episode is actually concerning, because we've got another driver-suggested episode here, and the driver that suggested this episode is going to be joining us today. His name is Michael Duncan. We like to call him Donut. He has been on this podcast a lot, and I thought it was a very unique suggestion, because we ask almost every driver what they did before they got to Liquid. When we're introducing them to you on the show, one of my favorite things is to say, how long have you been driving for Liquid? And sometimes I'll ask them, what did you get into before that? Or they'll just volunteer that information. But we never actually dig in to what drivers did before they started their career in trucking. And today's episode, suggested by Michael Duncan, is all about that. We are going to talk in depth about the careers of 3 Liquid drivers, and it runs the gamut. I don't want to spoil it for you right now, because we're going to get to it in a few minutes, but some unique, fulfilling, and interesting careers that these drivers had before they got into trucking. Some of it is kind of related in a way that, like, it'll make sense to you later. Some of these other jobs that these drivers have worked have nothing to do with trucking. I mean, so far away from trucking. I would say that the relationship between trucking and some of these jobs is that they get all their supplies and the things that they need from trucks like the rest of us. But that's probably where it ends. So I'm really excited about it. It's a long conversation. It went just at like 45 minutes, so I don't have a ton of time here. But I thought it would be cool to run through some of the things that I did. What shaped me? How did I get to broadcasting? And it's really kind of a hodgepodge of things that were fun. Some of them I hated. Some of them were jobs that I took, and you guys will relate to this. You take the job because you need the paycheck and not because you have any passion whatsoever about what's actually happening. And sometimes those jobs give way to something that really works for you, and sometimes you discover something about yourself. I told my dad, I think probably when I was 15 or 16, that I wanted to do radio. I was fortunate. I grew up in a little tiny podunk town, 2,000 people up in the mountains in Northeast Oregon, and I had said something at a job fair or at a basketball game or something like that to a guy that worked at the local radio station. Now, when I say the local radio station, I am very succinct. There was one. It played country music from 6 to 8 a.m. They did like a farm report. And then also within that farm report in the morning, a lot of times would be like, there's a cow loose on Highway 82 near the Miller farm. Please, get out there and check and make sure your fence is still up, because we don't want your cows or any of the rest of your livestock to get hit on the highway. It was that type of a radio station, very close-knit, run by the same family for a very long time. And one day when in passing, I mentioned an interest in broadcasting, and this guy, he didn't own the radio station. He probably wasn't in the position to make this decision, but he took a chance on me. And he said, listen, if you want to come down to the radio station on Sunday night from 6 to 9 p.m., I will let you play whatever music you want to, and I'll let you get a feel for what having a radio show is actually about. So I grabbed my wallet full of 200 plus CDs. There was nothing but punk rock, pop punk, normal like grunge rock, like the Nirvanas and the Pearl Jams. I had some Metallica and some Megadeth in there. A lot of Blink-182 and New Found Glory, a lot of Green Day, a lot of Offspring. And I went down to this little country radio station, and I completely blew up their airwaves with music that nobody in the county had heard for the most part, especially on a radio show. I think that I was able to do this about 4 times before the scheduling kind of didn't work out anymore, and I wasn't able to do it. But it fostered a love for broadcasting for me at a very young age. And, things are completely different now. Everything is digital in the world of radio and broadcasting in general. This was not a digital studio at all. This was still on what they call carts. I would have to load a CD into this plastic contraption and shove it into basically a turntable. And there were 2 docks, one on the left and one on the right. And that was how we transitioned from song to song. So I would have my song playing on the left cart, and there was a big dial in the middle. And as that song faded out and ended, I would turn the dial so that the volume gradually decreased on the left, increased on the right, and I would talk over that. Okay, that was Damn It by Blink-182. It's one of my favorite songs. Thanks for being here. 92.1 KWVR in Enterprise, Oregon. Next up for you, I've got Self-Esteem by The Offspring, and coming up a little bit later, we're going to hit you right in the face with some Metallica. It was a phenomenal experience for me, and without that gentleman, I don't think that I probably would have fallen in love with radio like I did. I probably wouldn't have almost dropped everything while I was in college for a job paying next to nothing in radio, and subsequently had a 10-year career in it. But there was a lot of things between those that I wasn't involved in broadcasting at all. Let's go through them, okay? Very first job, I worked at a You-Bake pizza and video rental shop. Yeah, ancient, right? I hate to date myself here. I'm only 40 years old, but when I was a kid, video rentals were still a thing. We had games, we had videos. There was even an adult section in the back, which it wasn't really in the back. He just kind of hid all those movies toward the back of the store next to some really old stuff that nobody looked at. But I will tell you right now, I had to have an altercation with a gentleman who brought in a very adult movie, and it was like 45 days late. And the late charges, if you guys remember, used to stack up. He handed me this VHS at the time, and I checked it back in, and I said, hey, look, man, you owe us like $45. I'm not sure anybody would have checked this out when you had it, but still, you kept it for longer than the allotted 3 days, so we're going to need that. And he said, I didn't check that video out then. I just checked it out a couple days ago. Okay, this is awkward. You're standing here with your daughter. We're talking about a movie that I can't even say the title of. And it basically ended up, I had to get the manager involved. Terrible experience for a 15, 16-year-old kid. But the cool part was, You Bake Pizza. I could make whatever I wanted and take it home. The owner of the video store was awesome. He was a great manager. And I actually ran into him, 20 years down the line. I went to a live radio broadcast that some of my colleagues were doing here just within 6 months ago, and I ran into my old manager hundreds of miles away from where I grew up. It was a really cool experience. Also, we got the new release movies that didn't come out to rent until Tuesday. They would ship in on Sunday, and he would let us take them home and watch them with all of our friends. In a place that only has one movie theater with one screen, that was like being the coolest kid on the block. So very cool experience there. After that, I detailed cars at a Chevy dealership for a couple of summers, and then I found what I think was one of my favorite jobs. I was a parasail boat captain on Wallowa Lake in the Wallowa Lake State Park in northeastern Oregon for 3 summers. My last 2 summers of high school, and I actually came back from Eugene and made the 7-hour pilgrimage, moved back home, and worked that job again in the summer because it was awesome. We would tow people around in parasails. We got paid $25 an hour. People tipped us like crazy. I hung out in board shorts and had the best tan of my life. And then I would dock that boat. I would put it on the trailer, take it back up to the pack station where we left it for the night, drive the 7 or 8 miles home to my house, grab my dad's boat, and take it out and wakeboard until dark with all my friends. It was the epitome of a sweet summer job. Had nothing to do with broadcasting. There was a little bit of entertainment in there, but since I was the captain, it was more the deckhand's job to entertain the people. I was there to drive the boat and keep an eye on all the safety things because, well, we're flying you in a parachute on the end of 750 feet of rope up in the mountains. So things could get a little bit hairy, but awesome job there. I worked at Applebee's for a little while in college. I was an Apple buddy, believe it or not. That was where I discovered that I really don't enjoy customer service as much as I thought I did. You know, generally I'm pretty friendly, I'm pretty open, I'm talkative. Food service, for those of you that have done it, hats off to you. It's not an easy gig. And after that, I jumped into radio and never looked back. I was a legal cannabis salesman for 5 years after my career in radio ended. I managed a couple of legal recreational dispensaries here in Oregon, and I was also a sales guy. You guys have heard me talk about it before. I drove all around the state. I put on 6,600 miles one month. That was my record. Pales in comparison to what you guys do, though. And after that, I sold some cars, really hated it, did not like lying to people for a living, and out of nowhere, I found this job, and I will never look back. I love what I do now. It has really shaped me as a person. All of the great people that I get to meet that literally move our country every single day of the week. It's been one of the most enriching experiences I've ever had. And obviously, we don't have time to dig too deep into this. Like I said, the interview ran pretty long, so I want to get to it. But just to give you a little background on the dude that you listen to once a week, I've been all over the map, okay? And it was not cool on the 2 for $20 nights at Applebee's. Man, I think that that's one of the reasons that I'm as bald as I am. But I also think it might be something in the water where I grew up. It happens to a lot of us. Let's get to our interview now. We got 3 liquid drivers coming on the show to talk about their prior careers before they got into trucking.
Welcome to the gold standard of podcasts for the gold standard of drivers. This is the Liquid Trucking Podcast with your host, Marcus Bridges.
All right, welcome back here to the Liquid Trucking Podcast. I got 3 drivers on the line to talk about former careers. I'm very excited about this. A couple of these guys have been with us plenty of times before, and we're also welcoming another driver for their first time on the podcast today. That is always very exciting for me because we want every driver that wants to be a part of the podcast to get a chance to come on and say their piece. So let's go ahead and start with the guys that have been familiar with this process a little bit. We're welcoming back to the show Michael Donut Duncan. What's up, Michael? How we doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. It's just another day.
Good, man. Glad to hear it. Nathan Dobrins is our other driver that you'll recognize. Nathan, thank you for the time, my friend. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And welcome to the show for the first time ever, Shade Thomas, Liquid Trucking driver. Shade, thank you for the time. Glad to have you here.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. Now, I like to give everybody that comes on for the first time just a quick introduction. Just going to ask you a couple questions here to kind of find out how long you've been with the company and such, and let the drivers get to know you just a little bit before we jump in. So talk to me about that, Shade. How long have you been driving for Liquid?
I'm going on near 10 years now.
Oh, wow. So you've been with the company for quite some time. I always have to assume if you've been with us for that long that you must like it here.
Yeah, I love it.
That's awesome.
Good place to work.
That's awesome, man. Well, welcome to the show again. Thank you for the time. Today's topic, of course, we are talking about what you guys did before you jumped into trucking, whether or not that was jumped in with Liquid or jumped into trucking in general. I just kind of want to get behind the scenes here and find out a little bit about it. Michael, I do want to thank you. This suggestion came directly from you, so I will be clicking the button and making sure that you get those 250 Drive for Gold points for this episode suggestion. It's a good one, man, and I'm going to go ahead and start with you since you're the one that suggested it. Talk to me about what you were doing before you got into trucking.
I did a lot. The main thing I did is I did direct support for people with developmental disabilities and home health care.
Okay. And So I have a question here that just pops into my head right when you say that. People with developmental disabilities and home health care. Was that a pretty fulfilling job for you? Did you do that because you kind of get that feeling that you're really helping somebody and it makes you feel really good going home at night? Or like, what was behind you starting out in that career path?
Well, when I was young, that's what my mother and her girlfriend did while I was growing up. They managed a company out in Nebraska called Bethany. They were managers there. And you just
kind of fell in love with it at a young age?
Well, yeah. One of my aunts, she had disabilities, and so it kind of hit close to home. And when I was 16, my mother had her third kid, second son, and my little brother had Down syndrome. So
I see.
After I graduated, I'm just like, all right, well, I want to be the kind of person I want to work with him when he's on his own, so to speak.
That's awesome, man. And I'm assuming that your little brother is kind of a big inspiration for you.
He was.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Did you lose him? I'm really sorry to bring it up like that. I wasn't aware.
No, it's fine. That was that was me. I probably should have made another note of that beforehand. Yeah, he passed away a few years ago. Because he had Down syndrome, I always knew he'd go before me. I just didn't expect it so soon.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I've known and gotten to interact with a few people with Down syndrome in my life that really touched me in, I guess, a little bit deeper way than I ever really realized at the time. There was, I grew up in a real small town, rural town. And there was a kid there in town who's probably 10 or 15 years older than I was. His name was Chris. He had a great family. They had a kid in my class as well, big family. I think they had 8 kids. And Chris, after he got through high school and he wasn't in school anymore, he would hang around town doing odd jobs at the local pool, and he would hang out down at the local Chevy dealership and, sweep floors and help out down there. And Chris, he's still around today, and he's got to be pushing mid-50s at this point. And I never knew how enriching all of those experiences interacting with Chris were at a young age. He used to come to all the high school basketball games and sit with us in the crowd, and everybody loved Chris. And, I think that when, at least through my experiences with people with Down syndrome, I feel like they are just made of 110% love. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that, but I think it's cool that it kind of was part of what was behind you pursuing this career path in the first place.
Yeah, being raised in that industry back when it was okay for staff to invite the individuals home for holiday celebrations and stuff, especially the individuals whose families weren't really in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with all sorts of different people. Other than my biological aunt, I had an extended family of aunts and uncles that weren't related.
That's very cool, man. So what led to you sort of deciding that you were going to, leave that industry and start out in trucking, or was there a transition between that career path and trucking for you? How did you get to where you are today?
Well, I left working with people with developmental disabilities and home health because I got tired of paycheck people. That's what I call them. They're people who show up only to earn a paycheck. And if you're doing that kind of work, you're wasting your time.
Yeah, isn't that the truth, man?
My weekly paycheck now is more than double my biweekly paycheck doing that. So I wasn't in it for the money.
Sure. Well, and you don't want people to be in that career for the money. That's why my first question was it something that was a fulfilling thing? Did you do it because you got that great feeling every time that you went home after the day? And that really wasn't the case, but it was the case, but it wasn't the only thing that pushed you to it. That people that are in that industry for just the money kind of terrify me, to be honest with you. Because it feels like they would be the first people to mistreat. I don't know why that's the first kind of thing that bubbles up in my mind, but Was that your experience? Is they just didn't quite care as much about the individuals they were working with as the paycheck?
Yeah, the kind of people I'm talking about aren't mistreating the individuals or anything. They're just doing the absolute bare minimum to collect their paycheck. You know, no abuse or anything like that, but they're only in the house. They're only doing exactly what the programs are, to the letter what it says they have to do. Meanwhile, I'm getting beamed in the face with a basketball because the guy I was working with wanted to do a half court shot.
I'm sure you've got a lot of stories like that though that are little bright spots in your memory. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's how I came up with the fake curse phrase of flying powder blue Jesus.
So explain that to me.
So I was playing basketball at the local rec center with an individual I was working with, and he wanted to shoot a shot from half court. Pretty strong guy. He made it all the way to the basket, all the way to the backboard. Not in the hoop. The ball bounced off the backboard, slapped me square in the face. I had Spalding on my forehead for like 3 days. And anybody being beamed directly in the face with a basketball at that speed is going to want to say some pretty strong words. I was near to dropping the F-bomb when my brain reminded me I'm at work in public and there are children everywhere. So I was like, flying powder blue Jesus.
I'm going to write that one down. That sounds like something I need to say next time I stub my toe for sure. That's great, man.
I loved the work, but like a lot of places, things get real political and real, sometimes cliquey. Mm-hmm. And I found, I was talking to one of my managers at the time, and I found that I could do more for the people I was working with from a more civilian standpoint than I could actually working for the company.
So do you volunteer and things like that now? Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yes. I no longer live in the same state as when I left. Anytime I go visit my family, I stop in and visit some of the guys I used to work for. When I worked for a different trucking company, I actually I got approval and did a day thing with one of the guys I used to work for. He uses a wheelchair 24/7, and so his mother and her husband they drive truck, but they hadn't really taken the time to loop him in on that. I'm just like, all right, cool. So I got approval from my previous boss, his parents, and we did a day run together in the truck.
Oh, that's so cool, man. What a great experience for that individual and for you as well. How cool.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. He was screaming at everybody doing stupid stuff on the road, same as I was.
Kindred spirits there, man. I love to hear it. Well, that's great, Michael. I appreciate that, and I'm glad that you're willing to come on and share that story, because that's a very unique career. There's not a lot of people that have the heart and the gumption to jump into something like that, because I'm sure there were days that you went home and you felt just devastated for one reason or another. I mean, it's a tough industry to work in. I have to guess, and I'm amazed that you were cut for that cloth and could stick it out and do that for as long as you did.
Yeah, it was good work, but the political cliquey thing was half the reason. The other half was my second wife's family kept pushing me to get a real job, as they said it, and they're like, "Well, go be a truck driver. Go be a truck driver." Well, my uncle, he's a truck driver. I mean, he works for Liquid too, and my grandfather on my father's side, he was a driver. I was like, all right, well, it's in the blood. This is also in my blood. I might as well give it a shot.
That's cool, man. So you ended up in two different industries that you had flowing through your veins one way or the other. So it all worked out in the end. And we know you're happy here with Liquid. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on the podcast chatting with me all the time.
Yeah, I'm on my third year, and I'm happy. I like it here.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thanks for sharing, man. Nathan,
Thank you.
want to go to you next because
All right.
you hit me with a few different things that you used to do. One of them stuck out to me, so I'm going to ask you to start with social media manager because I've done social media management, and I am mostly bald, and I don't feel like it's an age-related thing, and I don't feel like it's something in the water. That is a headache-inducing career. At least it was when I was doing it back before things were quite as integrated as they are today. Talk to me a little bit about social media management and then some of the other stuff you did before you jumped into trucking.
Well, social media was for, I'm still under NDAs, you know how those are complicated, probably in your industry too. You have all the technicalities, can't really discuss the backgrounds of it, but
Yep.
it was for a mobile video game. The hint I could drop which one it was the top rated mobile racer game in 2017.
Okay, so
Yeah.
people can find that if they want to know, they can just Google that, and I'm sure they'll be able to come up with the answer.
Well, it was at least one of the top 5.
Okay.
I give that part. But basically, I was brought in to manage their social media pages. They had one was 250,000 followers, another one was more of the fan art style. So my job was mostly between doing Instagram, doing Discord, talking to the community of a couple thousand people, trying to organize events, contests. If they won the contest or voted on it, they would get points in game. Like, it was more along the lines of that kind of management because, you know, the developers, they had to focus on developing the sequel.
Mhm.
They didn't have time to really, you know, invest the full time it takes to manage social media on a large company like that.
Sure. It almost kind of sounds like you were a community manager more than even a
Yeah.
social media manager. Like you were
Yeah.
responsible for things outside the scope as well as inside the scope of social media.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the office with them. I was like right next to the, you know, head developers. They were twins, which was kind of confusing. The only way you could tell them apart because they were exactly alike. You just had to look at their tattoos to see which one was who.
Oh, well, at least they took the liberty of identifying themselves in some way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah, it was just amazing too on because the game itself was relatively basic, but the amount of fan art that would come out of the people that are like all over the world. I got people from Central America, South America, Europe that were sending me stuff for contests. I'm like, you know, having to have Google Translate to stand by to translate it on the fly. I'm like, geez,
That's
and
cool.
it wasn't even, you know, because I treated it as salary, but you couldn't do it. I still had to have a second phone that just had that logged in, and I could sit there and, you know, manage it. If there's people from Europe and all that different time zones, I had to be like, okay, there's somebody here. Hold on. Or contact this person for your points. Hold on.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like with 250,000 people, it doesn't really matter what's going on within that community. It's going to feel like you're in a meteor storm all the time because there's just shit flying your direction every minute of every day.
Yup.
Okay, so what led to getting out of that? Was it that the last thing you did before you jumped into trucking? Was there other things that you were getting into?
That was the last thing that I got into that peak COVID, and it was contract, and, you know, unfortunately COVID kind of messed a lot of things up, so that one didn't pan out. Before that, I was a night shift manager at a grocery store. The grocery store I can talk about this was Safeway, which that's West Coast, Albertson, Safeway. If you're in the Midwest, it'd be like Family Fare or HEB, and if you're over in East, it's like Publix. I don't know what Northeast has. They have Albertson, Safeway up there as well. Started from the bottom there as a bagger, went to liquor department, which the liquor department in my store, it outdid the produce department in sales. The liquor outpaced the produce department by $10,000 a week.
By $10,000 a week. So you sold $10,000 more in liquor than you did in vegetables and fruit.
Yes, it was. I think the average gross sales for a liquor department, just the wine, this is the wine and hard liquor, not including the beer, was about $160,000 a week.
My God, were you working at a store on the Arizona State University campus?
No, in the Ritchie part of the Bay Area.
Oh, okay. So they party too.
Yeah. Oh, they're cheap too. Like I remember taking before I did that, when I was a bagger, I remember taking bags out to a woman in her Ferrari. She only gave me a $2 tip.
Unbelievable, man.
I'm like, oh, okay. But I did linger for a little bit. Then I eventually worked my way up to the night shift supervisor, which I was order writer or a 24-hour store. So I only pushed for that because it gave me a $13 an hour raise to do it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Check that box off.
The most memorable story from that time was there's this one homeless gentleman. Then this is 2014, mind you. He had you know how Google Glass came out a couple years ago and accounts flopped or the vision. But he had the 2014 equivalent where he had a desktop computer in his backpack and like one of those little like screen that projects on your glasses type thing. He would have that. He would just be on it in the check stand. I'm like, oh, okay. One day he comes in. He's like, hey, I need Amazon gift cards. I'm like, okay. He realizes cash only. Like, yeah, that's no problem. He puts down $2,500 in $20 bills on the check stand. I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. Really? So I had to sit there, count all that out because their policy was as long as they're paying in the cash, no matter how sketchy it is, go ahead and let it go through.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you? Okay, so $2,500, and I had to put it in a separate till because the till couldn't handle the 20s. Freaking, marking the pen across all, make sure it's all legit. It was all legit. I'm like, I don't know where this guy found $2,500, but he found it.
Well, he's got a whole computer in his eye. You never know what he could be capable of. You know?
I don't know if he was trading Bitcoin before it was Bitcoin, but he got something going on.
Oh, that's funny, man. That's funny. You know, I'll tell you this because you're very familiar. I had a buddy that worked at Safeway when we were in high school, and I think he had worked there for a couple of years, and then he turned 18, and it was going into his senior year, and the union boss approached him and was like, hey, you should join the union. You need to join the union now that you're 18. You know, here's the paperwork. And he looked at it, and as an 18-year-old kid, all he saw were the dues. And he was like, what the hell, man? I don't want to pay a chunk out of my paycheck. This is the only money I have. I'm about to be out on my own. But he also didn't want to go out and find another job. So he went ahead and signed off on it. The only thing he changed about how he operated was once a week, he would leave me and my buddies a case of beer in the back alley. When he would take out the garbage, he would put it next to the dumpster. We would come screaming through like Ocean's 11 and pick up the case of beer. And, then we'd go get him after work and we'd have a couple beers with the guy. And he felt like he was getting back some of what he was paying to the union. But I always thought that was kind of funny. It was like his own way to stick it to the man, even though I don't know if you can consider the union the man. I don't really know. But
the union, was it UNFI was the union or UF something like that?
It was up in Oregon.
Food workers or something?
Yeah, something like that.
One. Yeah, I was part of them too.
Okay. Did you ever steal beer to get back at them?
I saw people lift the liquor department when I was working there, and I told them because we weren't allowed to stop them. They freaking lifted like $3,000 worth of Australian wine. I told them, like, I can't stop you, but at least pull the air stuff forward so it looks good so I don't have to go back and reface it.
Oh, that's great, man. That's great. What else? Anything else before trucking? And I mean, you kind of described why you got out of social media management. What caused you to get out of the supermarket?
I got a gig at the county hospital as a janitor. It was a union gig. I did that for 6.5 years. It was 4 years at the grocery store, 5 years as a janitor, 3 months as the community manager, then went back to the janitor, then I went into trucking. That's pretty much the rough timeline, honestly. Okay,
and you're happy here now, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, the janitor stuff, it wasn't bad. I mean, the Bay Area, for anyone that's familiar with California, they could pay. I made almost $90,000 as a janitor out there.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really
1 year.
That's amazing, dude. Well, glad to have you here. Obviously, you participate in the podcast all the time. Can't thank you enough for that. So I'm happy that you found Liquid Trucking and that Liquid Trucking found you. Shade, I wanted to make sure that you got to listen to a couple of guys beforehand to just kind of set your nerves at ease in case you had any. But getting on to you, Shade, I actually was clued into what you used to do by Bo Hankey and Cole Brown out there at the Plattsmouth terminal. And I want to thank them because they told me, well, I'll be 100% honest with what they told me. They told me you used to be a drag queen And then in a subsequent
Yeah, so
in a subsequent email, they went ahead and clarified that meant that you used to be a drag racer and that you would appreciate that joke.
Yeah.
God damn.
Yeah, I've seen that email. Me and Cole had words about that.
Uh-huh.
Oh man, so drag racing, man, that is a unique career for sure. Talk to me a little bit about that. Was that something that I assume everybody that drives a fast car at any level in competition probably started doing it at a very young age? Is that true for you?
Well, yeah, and they kind of stretched that a little bit. I wouldn't even say it was a career, but I did a lot of it. It was kind of along with my when I got out of college or told to leave college. I got into the doing body work. I was a painter, a car painter, and we did a lot of we did insurance work for the most part, but started doing frame off restorations, built a couple of hot rods myself, and had a pro street truck, and we were doing car shows and things like that. And there's, you can only listen to the Beach Boys so many times and drink so much beer at a car show. So that got real boring. And so we kind of converted it over to a drag car. Me, my dad, and my uncle, we all worked at the same shops. My dad was a mechanic, and my uncle owned a body shop and then ran a body shop. And he got me a job at the body shop. And so I ended up going over there and painting. But yeah, we got into drag race, and I worked at the body shop, and then we in the summertime we'd go out when unlike trucking at the body shop, I could kind of leave and come and go when I wanted to. So we'd go out to some divisional races. It was usually 6 or 7 races a summer, but it was kind of a deal where you had to leave on a Wednesday, and you raced Thursday through Sunday for the Lucas Oil Series. Divisional races, and then we also then on every Saturday night we raced local in the Summit Racing Series. So, but it was fun, and we had some sponsors and kind of helped pay the way.
Hey, for sure. And to be fair, I have a list of careers that I didn't make very much money at, but they were careers for sure, man. So I still, kind of at least call them that in that respect. But I mean, how many people out there have tried racing cars in any fashion and never done anything but spend money? I mean, that's kind of one of those things where you can spend a lot if you just get a little heavy into the gas on one run, right? You could blow your whole engine up, be out a couple $1,000s after 1/4 mile.
Yeah, there was a lot of maintenance involved. The style racing we did, it wasn't like you seen on TV with the John Forsches and the Schumachers, the top fuel stuff, but we were more sportsman racing with like rear engine dragsters with, big block Chevys and, just something around 1,000 horsepower type stuff. It was basically bracket racing. So as long as you did the maintenance, you could get a season out of a motor before you had to refresh it. But, you had your tires and shocks and stuff that you kind of replaced throughout the season.
Sure.
But, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yes, but the only money you made is come tax season when you're showing all your losses to gain.
Wait, was that methanol, ethanol, nitro, or just normal unleaded?
No, I run alcohol and everything I raced. It was kind of a more consistent fuel for us because we bracket raced, and alcohol is a lot better when you go into different altitudes. We race out in Vandermeer and Denver, and then go to a shorter elevation track where you're dealing with different density altitudes and water grains.
Right.
Alcohol just seemed to be a more consistent fuel for us.
That's cool. I love how he casually, I don't know if you guys caught this, Michael and Nathan, he casually said like, oh, it wasn't that much, just like 1,000 horsepower or whatever. That's so much more than anybody that just has a standard driver's license should ever be able to touch. So I'm glad it was somebody like you that actually had the expertise to keep it between the lines there, Shade.
And don't get me wrong, that 1,000 horsepower motor wasn't mine. I still have one of my cars that's been on jack stands for 5 years because racing's kind of disappeared and there's no money in it no more, and it costs a lot to do it. But I got like a 720 horse small block Chevy in my car. But I raced for these guys out of Omaha, the Kowalski brothers, with a rear engine dragster, and they run big block Fords, and that's roughly what they're somewhere around 1,000 horse.
Wow. So I know there's got to be like a wild story that came out of it. Is there something that off the top of your head that you can tell? Because listen, I understand liquid trucking drivers better than I think I understand myself sometimes, and I know a lot of them are gearheads, and they're chomping at the bit right now to hear some racing stories. So what have you got for me, Shade?
Well, mine was pretty uneventful. I used to race. I had a rear engine dragster. It wasn't up around 1,000 horse, but rear engine dragster is a 250-inch wheelbase car. Looks like a dart going down the track. But I got tired of the car. Was so consistent. It was so easy to drive, and it was straight. And I traded to a guy in Georgia for a tube chassis Chevy Chevette that was built out of Miami. So I went from a 250 wheelbase inch car to a 94-inch wheelbase car. So that's a squirrely ride. The left front tire I did a lot of 8th mile racing. It came down just about 10 feet from the end of the 8th mile. The car was squirrely and it was consistent. And I made a pass down there one night and went to the brakes, and I don't know, these cars, they have a racing braking system made by Willwood or somebody like that, and it's a chassis mount one. It mounts on the floorboard, and it's got a clevis that connects the brake pedal to the master cylinder. And I got down to the end of the track, and down on an 8th mile, that car, it only run like 100, and an 8th mile is only 660 feet from a dead stop, but you're getting up around 120 mile an hour, and I went to hit the brakes, and the clevis on the brake pedal broke, so I had absolutely no brakes. And they just filled the sand trap. They put a sand trap at the end of the track, and this car was, the front bumper, it was all lowered. It was an all chassis car, and the bumper was probably 3 inches off the ground, but the pile of sand was like about 6 inches. So I hit that at about 125 mile an hour, and car went over in like a football. And luckily they had a catch net, and it was kind of like that Ricky Bobby movie. I'm flying. I think I thought I was flying because it got violent for a minute, then it got quiet, and then I like this dust settled. I'm like, man, I think I crashed. I went to get out of the car. Go ahead.
My question is, how long did it take to pull the seat cushion out of your butt?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't even really know what happened because it was dusty in the car, and I after the dust kind of cleared, I'm looking around and I'm like, why am I looking straight at the ground? And when the car got upside down, it went into the catch fence and it just planted itself like a tree. The front bumper in the sand and the wheelie bars were straight up in the air, but I was just planted it like a tree in the catch fence down there, which was brand new, by the way. The track manager wasn't pleased with me because he just got done spending like $6,000 on that net.
Oh, well, he should have been checking brakes individually then if he was that attached to that net.
Yeah, there was a tech department. I guess we kind of failed that part of it. He just didn't see it.
Minor details.
Yeah. Now you're all strapped in the car, and they got removable steering wheels with just a shaft for the steering column, and trying to figure out how to get out of this car without falling straight down and running that steering shaft right through your guts before you get out of the car.
Sure.
But that was probably the most exciting thing that ever happened to me in racing.
Wow,
Old
man.
car, and just went out and bought another one. Didn't get a scratch out of the deal.
Of course, right? That's racing, right? Just go out and buy another one.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, thanks for sharing that story with us. I love hearing them, and that one's particularly exciting. I got one question for all three of you, and Shade, since we're with you right now, I'll go ahead and start with you. What do you think you learned from your prior career that translates over into trucking? Is there anything that really you learned it doing what you used to do, you really understood it well, and then all of a sudden you get into trucking and you realize, wow, this lesson totally applies? I assume there's a lot of them because both of these jobs have to do with driving, but anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, actually, especially since that crash I just told you about, just the safety equipment, just being safe, wearing your PPE and all that stuff. Because when I did get that car upside down, I burnt alcohol in those cars, and the fuel cell was dripping down on me.
Uh-oh.
And I was in a, kind of a weird spot to get out of the car. And after I figured out what it was, it kind of made me hustle out of the car. But, we had to wear 3-layer fire suits and helmets and neck braces and stuff like that. So yeah, safety equipment is probably the biggest thing that I took away from that and applied to, especially hauling chemicals and liquid.
Sure, absolutely. And I mean, I guess it also the familiarity of the volatility of those liquids. You probably learn a little bit of that. I mean, I don't know about you. When I was working at an auto shop, I was a detail guy, and I used to light every kind of cleaner on fire just to see what it would do.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like the alcohol that we burnt in the race car, that stuff burns clear. You can't even see it burning in the daytime. You have to, just see the heat waves coming off it. You can't see the flame.
Oh, that's scary.
Burning something. So
yeah,
that's probably the biggest thing. And I don't race around on the road. It's better to race on the track than it is out on the highways.
Absolutely, man. That's so dangerous. I mean, I get the appeal. Like, I was young once too. We had a quarter mile striped off on an old back road. None of us had any cars that should have been drag racing, but we were out there doing it anyway just to see whose was faster than whose. And I think about that at 40, not at 17, and I'm like, you are the biggest idiot, because I used to volunteer to be hey, I'll get in the left lane, you can drive on the right, and if somebody's coming and we don't see him, I'll hit the brakes and you keep going, I'll get in behind you. That was a 17-year-old kid thinking, that'll be fine, that's an easy fix for if somebody drives down this road. What a blithering idiot I was as a young child.
Yeah, the track's a much safer place to race.
100%. Nathan,
especially at 180 mile an hour.
Yeah, right. No sand traps out on that road or nets that we had. It was just a bar ditch and a bunch of fields. So,
yep, exactly.
Nathan, how about for you, man? From the supermarket to the janitor job to managing social media. I got to feel like maybe if you did learn a lesson from those prior careers that applied to trucking, it might have to do with patience.
Yeah, with patience. I mean, I think the one thing, the biggest influence on the job now from previous ones would be the janitor one, because I was a workaholic. I think I still consider myself a workaholic, because I'm one of those that even if I got time off, I have like a certain amount of time I could do free time. I'm like, okay, I want to go back to work, because I end up spending money on stuff if I'm not making money, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
But the thing with janitor that I think translated, I used to do double shifts, 16-hour shifts, and it was graveyard and swing shifts. I was on my own, so I feel like that taught me how to be reliable and be able to work long hours and be cut loose on my own, which out here trucking, for the most part, you're on your own out here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very independent gig, and being self-reliant like that is probably huge for you out there on the road.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think that's the biggest takeaway.
That's great. All right, Donut, we're headed to you now. What was it that you learned in your prior career doing home health care and working with adults with developmental disabilities that you can translate to trucking? I know this one might be a little bit tougher, but I know you've been thinking about it for a little bit now that I've asked, so walk me through it.
Well, there are two really big things you learn. With working with people with developmental disabilities, one of your main jobs isn't just with the health side of anything. It's trying to help somebody improve their life and make things easier. That translates to everything. You ask questions. You don't make declarative statements. So like a customer, I ask, hey, so how do you want me to do this? Are we using your pump, my hose, your hose? How are we doing this here? And at the same time, that also brings in the other thing, because sometimes you get people who just somehow expect you your first time there to know exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and they're a little bristly about it.
Right.
That's a very nice way to put it, bristly. I feel like there's a few other words you could use.
Yeah. I like my word. And doing it, if you're working with people with developmental disabilities, get a guy who would much rather be playing his video game, and he has a cooking program, and violent behaviors. Dealing with a guy who's just a little grumpy and doesn't want to explain it to the new kid is a heck load easier.
And I have to say that you're doing that, I hate to butt in, but my brother has my nephew. He's autistic and he's special needs, and it takes a person of a heart of gold and a lot of patience to do that, especially if it's not your own family. you're doing it for everybody else. That, I appreciate. That was great what you did there. I'd say that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it was actually on the job that I actually got my autism diagnosis. was while doing that job.
Really? That's interesting, man. Well, I never thought about that. The relationship to the customer service side of the job that you guys do now, it really makes sense because you do learn that, sometimes navigating those types of situations can be so much more nuanced than what anybody realizes. And just doing, like you said, it's not about as much about the smile, or it's more about the approach. Like, yeah, you put on the customer service face, you're friendly and everything, but asking questions rather than making declarative statements. Like the difference between those two in a situation with a bristly person can probably smooth that over in a heartbeat. And it's funny because in that situation, you're playing poker and they're just kind of, playing blackjack, right? So there's it's very interesting to me, just, as kind of a student of human nature, that lesson was something that you were able to apply to trucking. And I really appreciate all of you guys, talking about those lessons, because I feel like as professionals, sometimes when you look at a career path, you forget about the things that you've actually learned that you apply every single day, because it's sort of like riding a bike, right? You do it, you know it works. There's no reason for you to ever do it a different way. But then you see the new guy come in and fumble through it, and you're like, oh, yeah, I remember now that I learned this a long time ago. And that's why it really helps to have a mentor. Sometimes that guy can just shed a new light on a situation for you and help you along. So, guys, this has been fantastic. I'm really glad, Michael, that you brought this to my attention. I'm not going to lie to you. You did text me with this while I was on a beach in Mexico. And I'll say this, I think I probably got a little bit less sand in my draws than what Shade got when he put his drag car upside down into the fence through a bunker.
Well, I just got back from Mexico, too, so I still got a little sand packed in places I don't want it.
Dude, I'm digging it out.
Did you testicle?
It's ridiculous. I mean, I never thought that it would still be falling out of me after it took me 20 hours to get home a couple days ago, but it seriously is. But fellas, we're running up on, we've already been on the phone here for 40 minutes, so I want to thank you guys. And as you know, I like to clear some space for some final thoughts here. Anything that you guys want to say, whether it has to do with the conversation, whether you want to give shout outs to people that might be listening, the floor is yours. And Donut, since we're already with you and this was your suggestion today, we'll go ahead and start with you. Final thoughts before I let you go.
Wow, my brain stopped working for a second.
Happens to the best of us, my friend.
Oh, good. So it doesn't just happen down at the bottom. Well, for some final thoughts, the customer service side is one thing. I also went to college for psychology, which definitely helped, and did fast food service as well. So I got a lot of experience on that. But yeah, as for everything else, just everybody be safe and remember the lessons from everywhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for your time, Donut. Always a pleasure to have you on.
It's always a pleasure to be on.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you. Nathan, final thoughts from you, my friend.
I would say when it comes, like all this has come along, our careers and whatnot, I would say just trust the process, because let's see here, what's the age? It's 2025. Say 10 years ago, I was just starting out in the hospital. 13 years ago, I was just starting out working. Now, here, homeowner, driving for a great company and all that. You just got to trust the process. Things will happen if you're just patient and do it right as best you can, so to speak.
Absolutely. I think that one resonates with me very well. I told my dad fresh out of high school, I'm going to go be in radio. That's my gig. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it work. And I had almost a 10-year career, very successful show, until one day I didn't. And that was the end of it. And it felt like I'd never get back to broadcasting again. But through a little bit of perseverance and a lot of stubbornness, I think, I was able to get back and find this gig, which is the most fulfilling gig that I've ever worked in my life. And I will tell you, from my standpoint, 100%, Nathan. Trust the process, trust yourself, be true to yourself, and you'll find yourself in a spot where it works out for you. You really will. So well said there, man. Thank you so much for the time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for having me.
Shade, First question I'm going to ask you before I make room for final thoughts. First experience on the podcast, what did you think?
Not so bad. I got more of a question for Donut than anything. Is when you go from Donut to or he was Trash Panda, now he's Donut. Crickets, he's not there no more.
No, I'm here.
No more Trash Panda.
Well, I mean, my stepdaughter didn't call me Trash Panda. That's just you, Panda Bear.
I got the pleasure of training Trash Panda over there. We had a pretty fun week.
Oh, that's cool, man. That's awesome. Well, I didn't know you had done some driver training in your day, so you probably know a lot of the guys that we've had through here.
Yeah, I'm back to training again. So awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, man. I'm glad that you enjoyed your first experience here on the podcast. Any final thoughts for us about the topic or otherwise before we let you go? No, not a whole lot. Just everybody be safe out there.
I love it, man. You know what? That's the lesson you told us you learned and you took from racing into trucking. It's the safety edge of it. It's such a big part of our job here, and I love that drivers are always telling each other to be safe. I've fallen into that. I don't know if you guys notice it when I'm texting you or when I'm talking to you on the phone, but I always try to throw a be safe in there, be safe out there onto the end of it, and that's because of you guys. Like, you guys have hammered that into me. It's a phenomenal group of drivers. I'm glad to get to work with you guys all the time. Thank you, Nathan Dobrins, Michael Donut, Trash Panda, Duncan, and Shade Thomas for your time today, man. It's been a lot of fun.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Huge thanks going out to Michael, Shade, and Nathan for their participation in today's podcast. That was a lot of fun, man. And I will tell you right now, I actually I spoke to Michael for a little while after we did the interview. And first of all, he apologized to me and said, listen, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to start that out with kind of a bad news. And I said, absolutely not. This is part of why you did what you did. And I'm not going to give anything away at this point, because in the future, we're going to come back and tell the back half of this story about Michael's younger brother, who unfortunately passed away at a young age, life cut short, but had what I understand to be a fantastic life because of the people that loved him and the people that he loved. And there is so much more to that story that I do want to tell here on this podcast. I've talked to Michael about it. You won't even believe some of the things that are going on around that story that Michael and his family have been working on for years. So we will definitely bring you a little bit more information there sometime in the future. Just look forward to that. And, those types of things aren't easy to talk about, especially not on a podcast. You think about having that conversation just at a dinner table where you're comfortable and it's all people that you can be vulnerable around. Michael just came on and shared that story with us, and there's thousands of people that will hear that. And I just have to tip my cap to him and say thanks for telling that. It's a heartwarming story, and we'll get the rest of it sometime soon. Nathan talking us through his management in the supermarket world. Man, you want to talk about, like I said, sometimes customer service can make you want to slam your head in the door. And he was working at a place that was outselling vegetables with alcohol by tenfold. I can imagine the customer base was a little bit on edge. Maybe that's an assumption, but it stands to reason if you really think about it. And of course, social media management. I have done a scale of social media management that is about 1/10 of what Nathan was dealing with. He was working with a community of 250,000 people. The most I've ever managed, and I'm in the entertainment industry, was about 25,000 people. So I can't even imagine what he went through. As we talked about, just shit flying your direction every single day from every angle that you can imagine. So really appreciate Nathan telling his story. And Shade was he was awesome for his very first time on the podcast. He's super comfortable. Told us that awesome story about losing the brakes on a drag car. I can't think of too many other things that are more terrifying than doing 180 and not having the ability to slow down in the least without a beach of sand and a nice net to catch you. Seems like quite the harrowing experience, but I know how many racing fans we have out there listening to this show. I've talked to you. We've had Gearhead episodes a couple of different times where we've talked to people that are restoring hot rods. They're doing resto mods. They're rebuilding an old rig. Maybe they just like to tinker with their daily driver and keep it well-tuned. That was an awesome addition to the show. So again, big thanks here from the Liquid Trucking Podcast going out to Michael, Nathan, and Shade. You guys did awesome on the interview. I don't have a lot of time left here. We've already run over our allotted time, which, again, we talked about it at the beginning of the show. Jason lets me get away with whatever I want, let's be honest. I won't get my hand slapped for this, but I like to keep these things condensed for you down to about an hour because, consistency is a good thing, right? We should all hold ourselves to some standards, and we all know that I can ramble for hours on end, so don't tempt me. Keep me on a clock. It's the best for everyone. Don't forget to send me your episode suggestions. You can email me, podcast@liquidtrucking.com. If you have my cell phone number, send it that way. Call me, text me. If you don't have my cell phone number, anybody that you've heard on this podcast has it. Okay, so right here today, Michael, Nathan, Shade, if you have their information, get in touch with them. They will give you my number. Polar Bear's a great guy. Everybody knows Polar Bear. He's got my number. He'll be happy to share it with you. I could sit here and name drivers for 20 minutes that have my phone number. It's easy to get a hold of me. Or again, podcast@liquidtrucking.com if you want to shoot an email. We love your suggestions. And don't forget, everybody that gives me a suggestion that we turn into an episode goes home with 250 Drive for Gold points. And I know that those are pretty valuable to you guys. So get in touch. Send me your ideas. We'll make it into an episode. This is a collaborative effort, and love having you guys take part in it. Thank you all so much for being here today. Don't forget to go check out your bracket. We got the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 happening in March Madness this weekend. So we're going to be down to the Final Four, and we're going to have a pretty good idea after this weekend who's in the money, or at least who has a chance at the money, and who's probably hanging out somewhere down in the bottom half of the standings with me. It's going to be fun, so keep the shiny side up. Be safe out there, Liquid Trucking. And until next week, this has been the Liquid Trucking Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in and being the gold standard of drivers on the road. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and tune in next week for another episode of the Liquid Trucking Podcast.